Next, I would like to welcome Taina on stage. She's a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Helsinki, focused on social ethics in the Faculty of Theology. And she focuses on AI ethics in a multidisciplinary project called ETHICSxAI. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah. Which is founded by the Academy of Finland. And we will basically hear about how the community should be reacting in an age of AI and how it should be built up.
Or something like that. Thank you. So, I start with the reality of human nature and our human condition. We humans are imperfect, and therefore, sometimes when we act and cooperate, we fail. So, the technological systems we build are imperfect as well. However, in the common imaginary and marketing speeches, the AI technologies and AI applications are described to solve all kinds of human imperfections and all kinds of large global problems. I try to offer food for your thoughts, and therefore I hope that I do not fail when I ask a lot of questions. The use of technologies become woven in our social practices. And sociologists has called it sociotechnical systems that we create with human beings, practices, technologies, cultures, organizational cultures, and different kind of systems, laws and technical systems. And that in turn affects our way of thinking, acting, how we practice our everyday life, how we work, how we manage to get food on our tables, and how we present ourselves to our communities, our values as well, and resources we have to do all that. Let's start with the clarifying few concepts I have in my title, The Merciful Community in the Age of AI. What do I mean, the age of AI? Actually, Maxime did me a great service by presenting the reality we live in a societal perspective. I think that the digitalized societies and accumulating data are a great part of this modern age, as well is the growing computing capacity and steadily developing AI technologies that includes different kind of techniques like machine learning, neural networks systems, computer vision, image recognition, and, for example, natural language processing. And applied these different technologies try to answer to different broadening variety of private, corporate, and societal problems. So, what do I mean by merciful community? We people are social animals, as you know, and actually we celebrated the possibility to collect together in flesh here today after the long COVID times, and in my doctoral dissertation, I created these 5 conditions that I think need to be in place if we call something a community. The first is group of people, of course, and then some kind of recognition between these people, that they recognize I'm part of this group, and the group accepts, okay, that's part of us. And then there should be organized interaction, somehow known way to communicate, to collect together and pursue goals or share values or ideas or be together. And through this organized interaction, there usually are created and maintained some kind of shared ethos of the community. And by ethos, I mean the beliefs and norms and values, goals and means that people share. And part of this ethos is the belief of some kind of continuity. I think that we call community that kind of group of people who share the idea that we are going to be here for a while, not like it's in this situation we are here for this only one event. We are not perhaps creating a community itself. And part of this ethos could be the idea about mercifulness. And what merciful means, or mercy means, simply I define or say it's like compassionate and forgiving attitude and action towards one another. And in this reality, the mercy is actually need when we err, when we make a mistake, when we fail to act according to the ethos of the community or according to the plans. And how do we cope with the reality of the failure and mistakes? How we cope with the cooperational flounders? How we cope with the fragility in human life when the power of AI actually promises so huge efficiency and constant development and other huge things that are not possible for human beings. If we want to maintain the possibility of community with merciful ethos to exist in the age of AI, we need to ask what happens and how do we respond to imperfections and how the use of AI technologies itself changes our attitudes and practices. How do we create socio-technical systems that encourages responsible acting when we notice a problem in a technological system or somewhere else, and that not encourage the human beings want to cover their tracks and hide their mistakes? What do we do when the cooperation with AI and human being fails? And when someone makes mistakes, for example, in data analyzing or causes harmful effects to the system, to company, to users, to the environment. Do we blame the culprit and judge? And how do we respond to blaming and judging? Does it help that we are sorry, we take responsibility or learn? Or do we shame collectively, as many do in social media platforms, create a social phenomenon about someone's small error or mistake as persons? But in AI context, of course, the consequences of the failures could be fatal and really huge. But still, how do we react? Do we use shaming? And we need to ask, does it lead to repentance or stigmatization and victimization, or does it lead to ostracism, excluding the erred one from the community? This could be quite familiar way for organizations to react and say, okay, that was one bad apple, and then they could maintain their pure social identity and say it was not the organization that failed, it was the one culprit that did it. And actually it's an age-old phenomenon, this ostracism. The word comes from Greek. Or do we react with compassion, teaching, learning about the mistake, being open about our failures and taking responsibility and giving ways to reintegrate to the community and accept the culprit back to the fold, so to speak, without making the question about identity. And I think that these are actually practices that need to be practiced all the time in order that they create this ethos of merciful community. And I ask, what could be the role of AI systems in our communities? How could we use AI to prevent that the ethoses, our communities, do not become too judgmental, too shaming and blaming, victimizing, ostracizing people, and towards the people and systems that are part of them failures. Could AI systems set high standards for people in some context, so that the system and people could be more efficient? The practices could be more transparent, reliable, perhaps, and excellent in their expertise. Or could they be setting standards for compassionate and friendly actions, and also taking blame in situations where something does not work? I'm not sure how that could work in technical way, but I ask questions. Or perhaps AI system could act as a tool of interaction and recognition and create the way of creating and maintaining trust between people through transparency as well. Or could AI system be enabler of creating cooperation and merciful atmosphere and taking responsibility? Or could it increase monitoring and distrust between people? Or partner, could AI system be a partner in crime and in success? So we could say that, okay, we did it together with this system or with the help of this system. Or could we say, yes, we did it together? I hope that AI systems do not aim, at least, or the people who develop and use and deploy them, aim to become object of mistrust or misplaced trust. Last, I would like to ask the main question. Because by giving false promises and creating grand hopes for AI technologies, we actually make a disservice to the acceptance of the use of AI systems if we let the wider society to misplace their hopes and trust forcefully. Therefore, I suggest that in the face of designing and developing AI systems, we should take into consideration how to enhance our resilience and tolerance towards human and AI caused or human AI cooperational failures. I think that showing and accepting the imperfections of a system may create a reasonable ground for trusting the AI system and using it. And showing and accepting human imperfections may create reciprocal practices for trusting, compassion, and forgiveness. So we need practices that focus on improving the system and enabling continuity of the cooperation, not on finding and punishing a culprit or revenging possible victims. Thank you for your attention.